What's happening, guys? Welcome to another episode of Comic Book Weekly. Unfortunately, it is just the two of us. Myself, Mike Spiderslayer from the YouTube channel Comic Book Corner 2.0, and of course, next to me is Cat Comic Uno.
Hello.
So Brant is not here. He has not been feeling well the past couple of days. He thought maybe he would try, but he's just not in it. He couldn't come to the camera. His voice is the main thing that's kind of messing with him now, where yesterday he had a fever. So sorry about that once again, but hopefully we will be back on next week, all three of us, and we'll give you everything that we have. So we are going to bring you a little bit of comic book news. There's not a lot of stuff this week. And then, of course, we're going to dive into those comic books. And it also was a light comic book week in very many ways as well. But I still felt like there was some decent titles to definitely discuss.
Sure, yeah. There's some there's some issue ones. We got the Supergirl, we got Spider-Boy, got Jeff Jeff coming back. So
Yeah.
there's some good comics. But yes, we do have some news. One of the bigger news pieces from last week, let's just kind of jump into it, was the MJ and Peter Ultimate Universe reveal. So if you guys don't know, they are going to be married. They have two kids. I'm guessing their names will probably be Mayday and Benji, because that's usually the route of what they go for with those kids. And I saw your title of your video, Mike, where it was like, oh, is this going to outsell the Amazing Spider-Man? I think it really has a good chance. You have Hickman as a writer who's a premier writer. People missed the Ultimate Universe. People wanted them together. It's something different. We haven't seen an older Peter Parker in a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
What is this going to look like? Are the kids going to be involved? Will they have their own superpowers, which I could definitely see, because Ultimate Universe usually had to do with teenage Spider-Man. Hickman's definitely still a really interesting writer for this. I'm curious to see how character driven it's going to be, but I'm very excited. I mean, who wouldn't be excited for this? Just getting what we all wanted,
Yeah, I mean, I agree 100% because I just feel like this might be something that's a little different than what we would get from Hickman, right? It doesn't seem like it would be so much world building or whatnot. This is more character driven, and it has to do with, Spider-Man, Mary Jane, a family. Like, that's stuff that we don't normally see from him. And the concept here, I think is really cool. I can't wait to see how he tells this story. And I just like seeing how the responsibility is his family, and I just felt like, a lot of Spider-Man books, it just kind of gotten away from the great power, great responsibility aspect. And what more important is your family. So I think that it's a good concept. And I think the last time we seen Spidey with a family was Renew Your Vows during Secret Wars,
which was only a mini series and
it
was very involved in that event. It wasn't really its own thing. It was, I think we might have had something that came after that. I think it was like another like maxi series or something that Dan Slott wrote, if I remember correctly, but it wasn't very long. This is obviously more of a long game.
Right. So overall, I'm excited for it. It's a good way to kick off this universe. I mean, when you look at the original Ultimate Universe, Spider-Man was the kicker there. And this is just, again, a different aspect of the character, because the character is not going to get his powers until like when he's older. And I think that's kind of neat. He's not going to be until he's 30s instead of a teenager. So I think this will be a lot of fun. And it sets things up to, for the other Ultimate Universe books, like how are they going to be? The biggest one that I'm kind of weirded out by is the Peach Momoko X-Men.
Very different. And also picking a character that's so not as known, like Armor. Like, it's like, oh, she definitely has a fan base, but she's not like a Kitty Pryde or a Jean Grey or a Wolverine.
And if did you read the Ultimate book?
I did, yeah. Which it's interesting because it focused so much on the things I never liked about the Ultimate Universe, which was the Avengers, the Ultimates. So I'm like, oh yeah, I still don't really love this book, but we'll see where the rest of the titles go.
But the end of it did have Peach Momoko's
Yeah.
X-Men in it. And I still thought, I'm like, I still don't know how this is going to fit in this universe, you know? So it'll be definitely weird for sure.
So let's move on to the next thing, some more Marvel news. X-Men Forever promises to answer Krakoa's darkest truths, and this comes out in March. So this is a new title, I think, by Kieran Gillen, and I think it's a mini series. So it's part of the Fall of X, and it's like, oh, we're gonna get more reveals, and this is what's gonna happen. Jean Grey's involved, so it's pretty much what you always say about an X-Men title. It's a lot of the same things we've already been getting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how long we're going to drag out the whole, Fall of X and the unknown secrets. It's like I'm like watching a trial unfold, and it's just like, oh, we've just revealed this and that, or TMZ or something like that. It's like, okay, I get it. I'm at the point now where all I really want to read is just the main X-Men title, and then like, let's get to the end of this and let's move on to the next chapter already.
I've been there for like 2 years, and I'm only reading the main X-Men title because Kitty Pryde's become a main character. So, and also like I do like how Jared Dugan has written X-Men for the most part. I think he's probably
Yeah.
had the most consistent voice on
Yeah.
these characters because of Marauders. But yeah, no, I do not quite care too much about the fall of X. I'd rather it just be over and get a new chapter. Um, Let's move on to the next thing, which is Black Widow and Hawkeye is getting a series. They're teaming up, which it's been a pretty long time since we've gotten that.
Yeah.
Stephanie Phillips is writing it, and the art's by Paolo Villanelli. I'm not familiar with the artist, but Stephanie Phillips obviously has written a lot for DC actually, so it's kind of surprising to see her move to Marvel.
I mean, listen, I don't have too much to say about this. There's not much I think you can say about this, but I do want to see these characters together, right? I mean, they have a history, and I think that them being together would make a fun comic book, obviously, if written right. And I think Stephanie Phillips has written some pretty good titles this past year. I
I know
know.
you liked Grimm a lot. I don't know if you stayed with it or
Yeah,
not,
no,
or
I didn't, but she's written some like Marvel books in the past. She just wrote a book, and it's
I'm
just
gonna
like
look it up actually because I
it's
don't
just
know
like
what Marvel books she's written. No, she's wrote a lot for DC. Let's see. Recently, Cosmic Venom. It
Ghost
looks like
Rider.
there's Cosmic Ghost Rider,
Yeah,
Venom. It looks like a lot of the Contest of Champions titles she wrote. At
yeah,
least
I
it's
know,
from Comic Vine. This is like a quick look to see what
right.
she's written.
Cosmic Ghost Rider was actually pretty good. I felt like she just wrote something, and I can't remember what it is. Just recently, and I remember going, man, I like this. This is actually pretty good. Oh, I think she wrote Capwolf. If
Yeah, so she wrote Howling Commandos with
Yeah,
Catwolf.
yeah, that's what it is. Yeah, and she did a pretty good job with that. So I think she can do probably a pretty decent job with this type of book.
Yeah, I mean, I'll pick it up. I'll definitely pick up the first issue. All right, let's see. There's a lot of Beatles talk. Is it because of the shirt, or you guys just know I'm a Beatles fan?
She's a
The
Beatles
news,
fan.
the
They
news.
released a song.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
just a lot. The new song was solid. It was not like the best song they've ever released in life, but it was cool that they did it. And honestly, if you guys are looking for more Beatles stuff, the short film was really interesting to watch because when I heard that they were gonna do a new Beatles song because of AI, I think you kind of just imagine, oh, they're gonna like recreate John Lennon's voice, but the way they did it was like an old song that he wrote, and I was like, all right, that's kind of cool the way they did it. Is like very deep knowledge of the Beatles, but if you watch the Get Back documentary, which was like 10 hours long, they use a lot of technology to like pull different vocals and stuff like that from there. So, anyways, that's the Beatles talk for the show. But let's get into the last news piece for comics, which was big, and I saw that you did a video on this too, Mike. DC launching these 9.99 graphic novels, and they're smaller, so they're the easier to make 9.99. They're like manga shaped books.
Yeah.
And it's a lot of their huge titles like Watchmen. But then they did a really good job at diversifying because you have like Batman, but then you have Far Sector, you have American Vampire, which is a Vertigo book. Like they did a really good job at figuring out what titles to add. Gotham City Sirens, like I think these are some really great starts for DC, and
The first wave, yeah.
yeah, the first wave of their books. And I just think obviously this is such a smart move. You need to make books cheaper to get people into the medium and to pick titles like this that people want. And Marvel has a big issue at trades. It's very hard to get trades from Marvel. They don't keep them in stock. They take a very long time to get trades, and I think DC's been a little bit better at actually targeting the book market, which is where your money actually comes from. It's not really from the floppies, and also just trying to do new things with the book market. Like their YA line continues to do very well, and they target that completely just to the book market and be like, oh
Mhm.
yeah, we don't, this is not for you, this is not, this is not for the Wednesday warrior, it's for the person who goes into Barnes and Noble who's from high school and like wants to read about Beast Boy. So I will say I think DC has done a really good job at this, and I just think this is such a brilliant idea, and I hope a lot more people read comics because of it.
Yeah, I agree. I think the branding is really good because if you look at the books that are out, they're branded very similar. They're priced all the same. And that's what you need. You need that consistency across the board. Like, I stressed this thing on my video when I did it, saying, when you go to a store and you look at the graphic novel section, they have a bunch of random stuff and it's so overwhelming, right? And when you look at manga and you go and you look at the shelf, look how clean and neat and presented that it is. And it makes it super easy to find something, right? Now, this is in that same category, and they're releasing, stories that have already been out. But this does give people an opportunity that maybe have never read these stories, an affordable option to read, right? So it's like, I get it. Like us older readers have read a lot of these stories before, but if you haven't, they're right there and they're affordable now. Where instead of going out there and buying a full size collected edition at $30 or $40, this is $10, and you're like, okay, I'll check this out. So I mean, I think it works in very many ways. It targets readers that, may be fans of these stories for a long time and they want to collect it in a smaller format, or maybe they just read it and they want to own it and they never owned it before and it's an affordable option. So I'm curious to see how this will do. And I can't wait to see all the other different stories that they come out with. Even if you can't fit a whole particular story in one of these manga style books, you could always do like what manga does, volume 1, volume 2. Like say you did like, I don't know, what's a long ass DC story? I don't even know.
Jeff Johns Green Lantern,
Yeah, say
that's
Jeff Johns, yeah, Green Lantern, like freaking, I don't know, like Blackest Night, right? If you can't fit that all in a manga, you can do volume 1 or volume 2. And you can do it the same way as long as it's organized and it's easy for people to find. And then, then you're good there.
and I wish that Marvel would do a similar thing too, because there's so many great titles, like especially for even younger people, like Miss Marvel or Spider Gwen or Miles Morales. I remember just like if you're like honestly, if you're a fan of any of these characters coming out, like Miles is a really good example. I think I was getting a book for like a kid, and I don't remember, it was a couple of years ago, and someone asked me like give the best Miles Morales book. They really like Miles Morales, and I couldn't find any that were actually still in print. It is really
Yeah,
sad because like you'll have some of like the current books, but I'm like, oh, I don't want to give that because I didn't love that one. And then if you
right.
just look back at like Ultimate Universe or just look back at again even like Miss Marvel, there it's really hard to find those books, and that's sad.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Now, I think I got to look into this because when I did do that video, someone did mention that they think that like Marvel has like this Marvel Masterworks
Right. Usually for
versions,
older books though. Like I
right?
think it's for like things from the
I
1960s.
I think you're right, and I'm not sure if they're all priced the same or what not. I don't know, but it would be cool if Marvel did do something where it is 100% like kind of like what DC's doing, and then like I guess the same person pointed out, can you imagine like Kraven's the Last Hunt, or just all these classic Marvel stories in that format as well, right? So I don't know, man. I think if this catches on, this could
grow the
possibly get
industry.
manga readers in there as well too.
Yeah, it could be a big game changer. Tevi asks, what about the Ultimate Spider-Man? Are they hard to find now? Because they don't print anymore. So a lot of older series, they're out of print. So if you want to get it, you have to get like that volume that came out in like 2008, and it's how many they printed, and it's really expensive. So like honestly, go on Amazon now. So you go to Ultimate Spider-Man Volume 1. Let's see how expensive it is. Oh, luckily the actual original Ultimate Spider-Man one is only $20, but let's see if it's still in print. It's not in print. No, actually, Ultimate Spider-Man's in print. I'm glad to see that.
Yeah.
That's the Peter Parker one. I don't know about the Miles one. Let's see Miles Morales. Ultimate Spider-Man Miles Morales is not in print. I think it's $31 to get the first issue. Oh, that's actually the full collection. You know what? I'm gonna take back to my words, at least for Ultimate Spider-Man. They do have that in, at least from Amazon, it looks like. But $31 is pretty expensive for one collected book. That's pretty pricey. Anyways, Marvel. I remember I was talking to my comic book store, and again, I don't know how true this was, but I was talking to my comic book store when WandaVision came out, and supposedly House of M was not in print when WandaVision came out. So that was more of the example of what happened there. Let's see. Last time Marvel did low price collections in a similar size was Marvel Essentials, long black and white. So I guess that tried keeping prices low. All right, cool. Let's get into our main topic, which is the article that came out from Variety, which is the MCU in trouble, and then the Echo trailer coming out, which is interesting because I wasn't even going to watch the trailer. I was like, oh, I don't really care about this show, and I watched the trailer. I was like, okay, it's very like the Daredevil television show, which is cool. But
Yeah,
honestly,
they got that vibe from it.
Yeah, it did. But honestly, it's so interesting that I don't see many people talking about the trailer or the show. I feel like people are really burnt out. I don't know how many people. I mean, people love that Daredevil show, but is it like too long now? It's like, does anyone care? And obviously, with the MCU, there's a lot of issues there. And then, obviously, the article talks about the Marvels potentially failing, Blade having 10 different screenwriters, and what is the future of Marvel now that everyone's kind of been run down by all these Disney Plus shows and the mediocre Marvel movies that have recently come out.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. So like when I saw this Echo trailer on our doc, I'm like, I have no interest in this show whatsoever, right? Like the character is kind of cool, but I was like, does she need her own show? And so I looked at this trailer, and I actually watched it this morning when I was walking my dog. I'm like, dang it. Well, the Kingpin is heavily involved, and it's obviously looks like it's going to explore more of like her origin story, and
It's very
Wilson,
actiony.
yeah, and then Wilson Fisk is going to be in it, and they show him in there, and I'm like, this is kind of like almost like Daredevil vibes. Like that's what I'm getting, and it's much darker than I expected it to be, and it feels like she obviously has a very tragic story. And I was like, I find myself very intrigued by this and interested. And I agree with you. Like, I feel like this could be a very underrated show, and it could be like that type of thing where it's like too little, too late because
Sure.
people are so burnt out. And we're getting the Marvels that is getting ready to come out this week, and it's like I know this is not going to be a highly anticipated film either because people see this preview and are like, my God, this looks like a joke. And then I actually watched the preview during Monday Night Football last night, like the final trailer, and it had a more serious tone to it. I'm like, well, now that I see this final trailer, it actually looks better than any of the other trailers that I've seen so far.
Well, I think the problems with Marvels was also just that it didn't have a leg to lean on, right? Because there's so many, not rumors, but there's so much talk about the director not liking working on the movie, that she
Mhm,
left early. But then people are
mhm.
like, well, she left early because that's kind of how movies work. Like COVID's been happening and they just, they waited too long and things got pushed around a lot. So she's like, I have another movie, I have another commitment, I got to do that. So, I think there's a lot of conflicting information there, but then also it does seem like she didn't really enjoy being on the movie. And then, because of that, and because the lack of excitement of the MCU in general, the pre-sales of these movies not doing very well, and just for my own experience, I bought tickets for that Thursday night to go see the Marvels, and we always buy our tickets really early, and then we had plans on that Thursday, so we're like, oh, we have to switch it. Let's see if Saturday morning. But it's like, oh my god, we're switching it now. Will there be seats? Two people have bought tickets Saturday afternoon for the Marvels, or for their pre-tickets, and that's it
Oh,
for the
wow.
for opening weekend on an afternoon, Saturday afternoon. No one has bought tickets yet for this.
That
We
sucks.
yeah.
I mean, I wanna see the movie. I do wanna see how it turns out and what it is possibly going to, lead into in the future, but I know the future of MCU is very up in the air with, their whole plans was Kang being the big bad, and now based off of, everything that he's going through when it comes to, his, these charges that are against him, it's like, where do they go? How do they pivot? Do you change the bad guy? Do you change the actor? Or do you, what do you do? Right. And then it's just, that's what makes for me everything up in the air. But when it comes to, going back to the movie, Marvels and the show
Echo.
of Echo, I, you know, someone mentioned here in the comments that the Kingpin is dead. He got shot, but he's not dead. And in this trailer, like you see the bandage on his eye, so it's like he did survive that gunshot, obviously. But I think this could be. I think Marvel realizes the issues that they've had, and they're trying to course correct it, and that's why they did all these reshoots with the Marvels. And I think that's why they pushed back this show in general as well. And I think they want to do better. And I think if we give it time, I think it will improve. Will it ever hit that status quo of, Endgame and
Pop
Infinity
culture.
War and all that other stuff? Probably not, because I feel like fans' expectations are too high. When we got Iron Man and Captain America and all those different movies, our expectations weren't nearly as high, right? And then now we expect almost every movie to be at this pinnacle peak, and that's just not going to happen. Should it be as low as some of the stuff that we be getting? No, it shouldn't. They just pushed out way too much content, and that's not good. But I do think they can improve, and I think it can get better. I just don't think it will ever hit that peak once
See,
again.
and I don't need it to hit the peak of Endgame and like all the
Yeah,
universes are clashing. I just need good
exactly.
character stories, and I think Spider-Man, the animated films prove that, where it's not connected to everything. It doesn't feel like it's huge in the regard of like, look at this planet exploding. It's huge because Miles is a great character and you want to follow him. And there's a lot of good plot twists because of the character, not because of this huge universe. And I think they need to go back to character story. And 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 that will lead to your surprises. But World's Biggest Geek says, do you think eventually, sometime in the future, Young Avengers will be introduced Secret War before Secret Wars or Kang Dynasty? And I say I think that's a big problem with them too, is that they tease too much. It's like if you're not going to do Young Avengers for another 10 years, don't even reference it. I don't want to
Mhm.
know. Just show me the Young Avengers, or don't show me the Young
Yeah.
Avengers, or do what you did with the Kate. Like she was a character, like they didn't tease her. They're just building the character. Same thing for I guess with America Chavez, but these teases of like, oh look, there's Scarlet Witch's son, and you don't do anything. That's when I'm more disappointed. And yeah, just tell good character stories. That's all we need. And I think Marvel will do well. But then there's also that Disney in general is not doing well. Like it's not just Marvel's doing badly. It's Disney's pushing things really quickly. They're like, oh, you got to get the script done. You're obviously not gonna have a great script if you're pushing these things out quickly. And Disney, that goes to the parks right now, that they're not doing as well. Obviously, their animated films have been abysmal. It's
Oh
probably
God,
been
yeah,
the worst
yeah,
it's been since Black Cauldron. It's doing really badly. So of course, Marvel's not going to do great if your mom slash dad, your parents doing so bad.
yeah. No, exactly. I mean, we go back to that Young Avengers talk, and part of it too is when Izzy says our expectations are high because they reached peak and now it's overwhelming to keep up with the timeline, especially now we are dealing with the multiverse and time. Absolutely. Like we started very simplistic, right? Couple characters, a team, and then it exploded, right? And now it's just like, how do you keep up with it all, right? And that's the difficult thing
You
there. But
don't, honestly. I didn't. There's so many shows that I just couldn't keep up with. Like even Miss Marvel, I love that character, and I only watched half of the show because it just felt
yeah,
like it dropped off. Once they got to the origin stories, I'm like, no, that's not what I like about Kamala. Stop. She's just an interesting character when she hangs out with her friends, when we get to see her high school stories where she just gets to be a hero, and they're like, no, actually, let's describe about mutants. And I'm like, no, that's not the point of her character. And that's what's frustrating. Again, it goes back to the Miles Morales Spider-Verse stuff. Why that's so successful is because they knew that. They knew what was successful is not that I mean, it is that Miles is Spider-Man, but they focus on Miles being Miles and how that affects him as a hero, and that's so
hmm
much more interesting than Miles just being Spider-Man.
hmm
And I think I hope they take a page out of that series book.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And part of the whole Young Avengers thing has to do, and I'll put this out there, is honestly spec market in comic books too. It's just like people see a character, and it's also like, oh yeah, now the Avengers are gonna the Young Avengers are gonna show up, and things like that. And so that drives that as well. And so everyone's expecting Young Avengers, and then when they don't see it, then they get upset, and then like you said, why can't we just develop the character first? And then if something comes out of it, just it comes out. It's kind of like Iron Man. Like we didn't expect an Avengers movie. No one was expecting an Avengers movie at first. And, it just kind of led into that.
Sure. Yeah, and
Uh,
it's good. I mean, if you look at that first Iron Man movie, it's probably, and I still stand by, the best character story, because it really was just like, let's talk about Iron Man and be Tony Stark and who is he about? No
yeah.
expectations. But yeah, that's kind of the MCU talk. We're gonna jump into some Kickstarters that we were gonna. How about the Lifeline Cinematic Universe? Let's how about just the comic cinematic universe for us? But yeah, let's get into some Kickstarters. So Mike, why don't you start about shouting those out?
Okay. So first thing I have here is I have from our good friend Frank Zanka, who has the Lords of LA issue 2 that is live now on Kickstarter. Um, he has 27 days left to go on it. Just launched a couple of days, and this is just basically about a vampire who is returning after 60 years and is trying to take revenge on the vampire mob bosses that turned her to a vampire. So, and the guest star in this is Marilyn Monroe. So this book is like, vampires, monsters, 1950s Hollywood, awesome. It's pretty cool stuff, man. There's a bunch of different covers that are going to be coming from this, and Frank is an award-winning screenwriter, novelist. He's a Hollywood producer. He knows his stuff. And I don't think you guys will be disappointed with this one. So go ahead, try to back that project. That one is live now. And then the next one that I want to talk about is Mark Spears' Monsters. So if you guys are not familiar with Mark Spears, he has done cover art for Spawn comic books. And he has come up with his own monster series cards, series 1 and series 2. The artwork is absolutely phenomenal when it comes to this stuff, guys. And he is now releasing his own comic. He's going to be releasing his 8-issue comic book series featuring these monster-like characters. There's going to be a nice array of like homage comic book covers. I can tell you that, and you will not be disappointed with these. You can check out his Instagram to see what those covers are going to be in the future. And yeah, I've worked with him in the past as well when it comes to his Monster Series cards. You definitely won't be disappointed with this one. Yeah, this is going to be a lot of fun. It's not live yet, so you can just go on to Kickstarter, bookmark it, and then you'll get notified when it does go live. But yeah, this one is going to be cool too. So that's what I have.
Awesome. And I surprisingly have 2 Kickstarters live right now. So if you're into enamel pins, I'm going to share the page. We have enamel pins from our Lifeline Comics lineup. So if you like superheroes, you got like super dads. If you're a dad and like superheroes, that might be a good pin for you. We have our werewolf character from Beast and Snow. We got Ghost. So we got the poison apple from Snow White. So go check that one out. And then we have our comic book that's live right now, Slice of Life, the anime action adventure. I'm going to show some pages here. There's references to Pokemon, Sailor Moon, Power Rangers, Dragon Ball Z, and here are some preview pages. Let me get there. And it's a comedy book. It's actually our first all full out comedy book. And also again, there's plenty of references to animes, and they're based off of our webtoon Slice of Life, but it's new reader friendly, so you don't have to read that series to get into this one. But if you really like anime and am I even screen sharing anymore? I didn't. Let me screen share again. I don't know what happened there. But if you really like anime and manga, I think you'll really enjoy this one, and especially the ones I reference like Power Rangers, Sailor Moon, Dragon Ball Z. They have plenty of pages of references, so go check that one out. I'll give you the link for both of them, and we will get into the comics.
Yes, the comic books. So this wasn't the biggest week. The funny thing is, Kat, is my comic books this week. I think I bought almost just as many like variant covers and stuff
Wow.
like that than I got as like comics to read, because the second print of Transformers came out. And so there was like 5-second printings of it, like 5 different variant covers for it. And so I decided that I'm going to start a short box of just Transformers and GI Joe and Void Rival comics.
That makes
I
sense.
think that's
Yeah.
what I'm gonna do. So then
I'm sure they'll release a short box of those at some point anyway.
yeah,
So
yeah. So I'm excited for that. But we got comics to discuss, and the thing that we're gonna kick off our comic talk today is going to be Spider-Boy issue 1, the long-awaited character that was introduced in Dan Slott's Edge of Spider-Verse or the end of Spider-Verse run. And I personally, I enjoyed this book. I thought it was funny. I thought this is a perfect type of Spider book for all ages. I thought this is good for a younger audience. I thought this was a decent book for for older audience to read with their children. And I liked the humor. I liked how Spider-Man and Spider-Boy were playing off of each other. I liked the goofy characters, like that one character by the name of Gutterball. I thought that was kind of hilarious. I just had a fun time with it. And I like how you got to see the 2 boys in a lab together, and one turns into something else. And then obviously Spider-Boy turns into Spider-Boy. So I thought there was some good character work, and I thought the artwork from Paco Mandino was fun. I just thought it was an overall fun comic book, and I'm looking forward to the second issue.
I thought it was okay. I think because I agree with all those things. I feel like it was a fine book. It had it was funny, but also I think you're also right on it. It's definitely more for a younger audience, which is definitely
Yeah.
fine. This book doesn't have to be for me. And I definitely found that. And I also just feel like there wasn't anything too original about the book. It's very Spider-Man, it's
Yeah.
the humor of
Yeah.
Spider-Man, but there's not a distinct voice for me. And also obviously the promise of, oh, there's this mysterious past. There's not much of a hook there. Because you've had that promise, but it's not really being even teased here. It's just like, all right, here's this guy Bailey, and he's Spider-Man, and he has his friends, and he has this, life he's gonna lead. I don't think the book's for me. I don't think I'll pick up issue 2, but I'm
Uh-huh.
glad it exists and I'm glad it's there. But there's a lot of books out there, and I gave Spider Boy a real chance. He's been if this is the first issue I've ever read, and I've never read Spider Boy before, I would give issue 2 and 3 more of a shot. But he was in Spider Man a lot, and there was nothing even there besides the promise of him that I cared too much about.
Right. The female villain is like almost like a high evolutionary reject. Like
Hmm.
she splices humans and animals together to make like her own breeds. And so that's what that reminded me of, you know. So that was the one thing I was like, oh, this villain is not very original. And I'm curious now to see, once we get kind of like his origin story out of the way, like what is going to be the progression of the character. That is what's going to be, that is what's going to determine if the character has legs, because obviously we have Spider-Man, we got Miles Morales, but you have all these other Spider characters here that don't have ongoing series. They come out with minis consistently, like a Spider Gwen or a Silk, and it's just like we have another Spider character here. So what is going to be different that this character is going to be moving forward,
And
right?
and maybe just because I'm coming from a place that, I think Silk and Spider-Gwen are good characters, like, they have more meat, and I think it's a shame that they don't have titles, but then this that doesn't really have a lot to say, does have a title, and it's an ongoing book. Uh, yeah, I don't know. And also, and this is nothing against Dan Slott's writing, I kind of wish there was a different writer to write it, because Dan Slott, we've been seeing 20 million Spider-Man stories from him, and I'm excited for him to continue on Superior. But I'm like, oh, I kind of also wish someone else was writing this, like a new voice was writing Spider Boy, because I think that would inject a little. And honestly, I think Silk benefited from that. I think she became an interesting character because we just got to see someone new talk about her,
Mhm,
and I think this could have done even better if there was just a new take on him.
mhm.
And I get that Dan Slott created him, so obviously he wants to write him. But yeah, I just feel like it's old news bears already.
A dance lot created Silk too, though.
Exactly, and but then when we liked Silk was when someone else wrote it, when
Right.
that
And
ongoing
then
happened.
it just falls off. So
Mhm.
it's just like I don't know. I guess it's all going to determine, I think, on Dan Slott, like how long he writes that character, and then you're going to see if someone else wants to pick up that character, and if that character can continue to be what Dan Slott created or better. It's like that in any writer, right? It's just like Deadpool, for example, like going back to the days when Deadpool was first created by Rob Liefeld, he wasn't even close to the character that he is today, right? And so people picked up and like that goofy humor that that made him so popular, right? So I don't know. We'll see with this, but
I do want to
hopefully, I will
mention,
continue to like it. I
right.
I just find it very lighthearted, and sometimes in today's comic book world, I feel like you need that. I think we comics have gotten to the point where most of them are for adults, and they tend to be dark, and they tend to tackle uh, very much in today's society, and sometimes you need that comic that definitely takes you out of that element, because I think that's what comics should do. You know what I'm saying?
We'll talk about another book that I think did a little bit better, and w- we'll talk about it when it comes out. But I do want to mention what a lot of the people are stating in the comments is like, oh, this is really for young people. This is for young readers, and I think the big not that it's for young readers, but how you release it. Young readers aren't gonna find it, right? Like, or besides, like maybe a parent bringing their kid going to the comic book store is like, oh, Spider Boy. I guess let's give that to my boy because it's Spider Boy. But
Mhm.
like kind of what DC Comics has done in the past with the young adult graphic novels, they are targeting those people. The webtoons that they're writing, they're targeting the audience because that's where they're finding their books. Even Marvel with their Unlimited app, I think that's a better place to put it there because kids are going to follow the Unlimited or the app of web comics more than this random Spider Boy book. I just feel like they're releasing it weird. I almost wish it was a graphic, just something else. Like I just don't think kids are going to find it, sadly, even though it is geared for them.
So
even
this
though it
would
wasn't
be
promoted that way.
so this would be a perfect thing that, again, we were talking about these DC graphic novels that are released. So what happens is you release so many issues of Spider-Boy, right? And then once you get to that point, and then you release the first, I don't know, arc or two, however it is, into that small trade paperback form, you put it in a bookstore and people go to that area and be like, oh, look, Spider-Boy,
They
right?
did
So
that
that,
with Spider Girl. They
right,
that if her trades are not big trades, they're actually small manga trades. If you go
right.
back, that's how they originally released it. And you're like, oh, this is for kids. This is for teens. They have the younger audience Spider-Man titles. They did that a while ago too, and I don't think they've continued it for the time that they should be continuing it
Right.
when manga is so big.
Yeah. So I think that that would be something that they could look into, instead of, I think, yes, you should have an option for everybody, whatever it is that you want, but make it, how hard is it going to condense it down and put it in a bookstore, especially
Sure.
when, I don't know. It's just weird to me, but we'll see what happens with it.
Oh man, Steve brought another really good point. Spider Boy was geared for kids, but priced at $6. Really good point on that.
So
Didn't
that
even
first issue was
$6. Yeah,
more pages. It had a backup story, if I remember correctly.
it does. But then
Yeah,
I think that's a good point. Even if it has a
right.
backup story or has a lot of pages,
You
what kid has six
you
bucks? They're gonna be like, let me pick up
right.
this book.
You don't need that backup story, and you can at least charge the $5 for it, right? But when you, again, this goes back to those DC collected editions. If you're looking for more people to buy your stuff, you need to make it affordable. So it's like, if you make this into a condensed version and put it on the shelf, look, $10 and you get this huge story, or if you pay $5 and you get one 26-page comic book with ads. Like, do the math. What value for your money? You know what I'm saying? No wonder people pick up manga, because you get so much for what you're paying.
Sure. Yeah. No, it's just more accessible for sure. So hopefully they could do something with it in the future. But I just found that really interesting.
All right, so let's move on to the conclusion to the Batman, Catwoman, the Gotham War, Scorched Earth issue 1.
Man, this event might be one of, I don't want to say the worst
I'll say it. It's
Batman
one of the
events.
worst. It is.
It did
In
not need
recent
to
memory.
exist in recent memory. Yeah, because like obviously there's what's so frustrating about this event, and I say it every single week it came out, is that it's almost good. There's parts to it where it's like, oh wow, that could have been good if you did something with that. But this issue was not that. This issue was, let's just do nothing and let the art be mediocre.
I think it's because of the combination of writers. I think that's really what it is. And it it just wasn't consistent storytelling all the way through. And you're right, it did have potential plot lines to be really good, and it just fell through the cracks, right? And just the ending of this, like, it became a Vandal Savage story chasing after asteroids that can give them immortality. And Jason Todd is supposed to be paralyzed with fear, but he overcomes this fear over immediately to get into the bat wing, to throw the bat wing into the asteroid that's supposed to destroy basically Earth. And you're telling me this little bat wing can destroy the entire freaking asteroid? I mean, that's just ridiculous to me. And then he survives. Vandal Savage, you don't know what happens to. Catwoman survives because you see her at the end of the book anyway. There's nothing at stake. Nothing happens. It's a pointless event that happened in here. And there's a lot of things that could have went a different way. Oh, and Tim Drake, he freaking is in Joker toxin, fear toxin, and he's in a battle and nothing happens to him while he's supposedly exhaling this gas, right? He can hold his breath. I guess that's what he said in the comic book. So there's just a lot of dumb things that happened in this. And it started off a little sketchy to begin with, and then it just went further and further down.
I'm curious to see what I mean, obviously we're not reading Catwoman, so I don't think that's gonna be really affected, but I'm curious to see where Batman goes after this because I feel like the book continues to lose momentum, just like a lot of the other DC Comics books that we saw after their big event. And I really liked Chip Zdarsky on Batman, but we will continue to say it needs a direction. It just I don't even know how to explain this volume besides what's his face, the alternate Batman. That's all they've
Yeah.
really done, and it's not that interesting that side of the story. I'd much rather just see Tim and Batman team up. The best of Chip Zdarsky's run has been those Tim backup stories.
Spider-Man 2099 says, "How you doing, Mike and Kat? Doing well. Thank you
Yeah,
for
doing
watching
well,
the
thank
show."
you.
All right. Let's see what we got here. The problem with all this deconstruction of Batman and the Robins is that they don't go and reconstruct them. They just keep knocking them down and don't let them get back up and heal.
No, I agree. I think the last time we saw a full on full circle story with Batman deconstructed and then reconstructed with Scott Snyder. How they really built literally he wasn't Batman for a while, and then they're like, well, he's got to get back to the suit, and this is how he does it. And that's the last time I think we've because I don't know if I think we're in a revolving door of creators at this point that there's not a long-term plan for creators beyond. And maybe rightfully so, because James Tynion was supposed to be on, and then obviously plans had changed, and he was focusing on his indie stuff and saw success there. So, but I think you do need a longer plan for these to succeed. And I think that's why Scott Snyder's run is so renowned and people remember it so fondly, is because it obviously had a bigger plan and a
Yeah.
beginning, middle, and end. And none of these arcs feel like that. Besides some of the smaller books like Green Lantern, I think really feels like it has a beginning, middle, and end. And what a shame. Jeremy Adams really feel like he had such a longer story to tell with Flash. And then they're like, well, actually, we're just not going to have you on Flash anymore, even though he had such a bearing on those characters.
Mm-hmm. And
I
then we
think
got
it's
another comment here, and it says, Andrew says, it's funny how much Zur and R, I can never say the stupid
me either.
personality, is a huge deal in Batman run. And yet when it comes to detective, that backup personally just doesn't exist. I honestly, like when it comes to detective, that's a whole different story in itself. I haven't read detective in a long time, but the one that I can make a good example of is the Batman and Robin story. When you read the Batman and Robin story, it doesn't even seem like that alternate personality is even there. Like, and this does cross over between the whole Gotham War situation. So it just seemed like, I just feel like if this is such an integral part in Batman, we're not seeing enough of it to affect him. And you do see it in the Batman book itself, but when you saw it in the Catwoman side of things, when Teenie Howard was writing it, it doesn't exist. You don't hardly ever see the other persona of it. So I just want to see more of that struggle, that mental struggle that he's going through. And it just, you don't see enough of it, you know? I don't know, man, but I don't know what this book needs. The next story arc is we have Joker entering. We haven't seen Joker in a while, pretty much since Punchline was
Sure.
introduced. So I want to see now what Chip can do now that he's like completely on his own and has nothing to do with
And
Gotham.
no Daredevil either, because that was a big difference is that he was writing two series at the same time. I mean, at this point, I'm guessing he would just be writing Batman.
Mm-hmm.
So we'll see for sure. Like, obviously, I'm not losing hope on Batman. I just feel like it's definitely lost its way a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. So with that being said, what was your number 5 this week, Kat?
Mine was the Sacrificers issue 4. I thought this is a pretty solid issue. I liked especially the dad stuff of him, kind of reacting to losing his son. And the parts that always lack for me is when we get to see the gods and like how they react to being I guess you could call immortal, but they're refreshed, let's say. Um
Yeah.
I like the characters. Like I want to see what's going on with them. And
Yeah.
anytime you go back to them, you're like, whoa, that's really interesting. And even though it was just through the dad's point of view, I guess the end, I think you do get a little bit from the son too, and like what's going on with him. But yeah, no, it's a solid book. You definitely don't know where it's going. So, but anytime it focuses on the characters, it's good.
Yeah, I was the pain that the father was going through. I felt really bad for him. And that's what's really good about this book. It's very emotional, you know. And even though you don't know the dad really all that well, it's just you felt his pain that he gave away his, you know, his oldest son. And that was a sad moment. And then seeing what those kids like brains did, you know, for those gods, how they, you know, made them young again, I thought was like, I didn't see that coming, to tell you the truth. I like didn't see that from a mile away. And then the daughter winds up going and she witnesses it and she goes running off, you know. So I'm curious to see her thoughts and her actions going forward. But this was a very interesting issue. I wish there's more. Like I want to read more of this. And
This
every
book
time I'm like,
was
oh, it's
released every
done
2
already.
weeks, though. Isn't
What's
that
that?
crazy? So last issue came out 2 weeks ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I didn't issue 3 I had to read digitally because my store didn't have it. So when I came back to the store 2 weeks later, I had my pull list and they're like, "Oh, here's issue 3 too." I'm like, "What? Like, didn't this like I got issue 4?" It's like, "Yeah, issue 3 only came out 2 weeks ago." I was like, "Damn, that's kind of crazy." So they're releasing it pretty quickly.
Yeah, that's good though. Because I am so intrigued in this. I'm so like vested in what's going to happen with this whole situation. But yeah, it just reveals a little bit each time like you read it, you know.
Sure.
All right. So my number five, I think, is was Spider Boy. So that was my number five. Okay. So let's see. Now we'll go on to the Ultimate Universe issue 1. So you read this book. I read this book. Brant read this book too. What'd you think of it?
Um, I didn't love it because I don't love that side of the Ultimate Universe, but
Mhm.
I'm excited to see the other titles, like we mentioned earlier. Like I'm excited to see what's going on with Ultimate Spider-Man. Black Panther interests me because we never really see that from the Ultimate Universe. And like you said, the Peach Monomoko thing is like, oh, I don't know what that's gonna be like. But she's obviously been doing a lot with her own section of the X-Men, so I'm guessing it's just going to continue that. I didn't love it because I haven't been loving this type of storytelling, but that doesn't mean I won't like the actual titles.
Right. I found this one the best out of all of them
Yeah, no, it's
because
definitely the best out of because it had a story and it
yeah,
followed a character.
right. And it's just like there was a point there they had to break out Thor. They're thinking about getting Captain America. And what I liked about this one though is I liked this Thor. This
Mhm.
was a Thor that kicked ass. He's not some freaking happy-go-lucky character that smiles every fucking 5 seconds. Like he was just like, and he was huge. Like the way he was drawn, like he looked like a god, and he would not take any shit from anybody.
The art was
Now,
good for this book.
yeah, and I liked Lady Sif in this book as well, and I liked their mission to go into the Maker's place, and they realized that he changed the universe and everybody there is supposed to be something or some, you know, some different role or somebody different. So I liked how they figuring things out and they're building this team together, and I thought it was interesting, so I liked it.
Cool. And I think we already talked about the other book already.
Yeah, we talked about sacrifices and talk about Ultimate Universe. And speaking of number four, my number four was the Ultimate Universe book, so there was that.
Mine is a different book, which is Ghost Lore issue 6. I think it's almost over. I think we have like 3 more issues of this book. It's one of those middling books that I enjoy reading. It's not one where I'm like, gotta pick up Ghost Lore, but I'm enjoying the characters. This one was from the point of view of the dad and seeing the ghost and kind of unraveling the mythology a little bit more. So Again, perfect issue, no, but I'm still having a pretty good time with it.
I am surprised you still read that, man. That's I'm
I
not gonna
I
lie.
am too. I think it's been a point where when I was gonna drop it, it's like, well, now I'm almost done. Now I gotta
Right?
just kind of
Yeah.
see it through. Cullen Bunn does write Ghost Lore.
Yes. And Tevye goes, where are the rest of the Fantastic Four? Well, we don't know that yet. The only person we know is that Reed is Doctor Doom in that universe.
I
So
don't remember where they left it off because it's been so long. I don't remember where they were in the Ultimate Universe because honestly, out of all the characters in the Ultimate Universe, Fantastic Four was the most different because Reed Richards was always evil. So I don't remember what they did with those other characters, and that's why I don't know where. I honestly don't even know if they're alive.
here's a comment. I don't think it's worth making a trip to the store for a copy of Amazing Spider-Man tomorrow. I have it on pre-sale for that Disney cover anyway. I
It's a
almost,
new arc.
I mean,
No, it's
if
not.
no,
It's
it's
Rip Rap.
not. If
Yeah,
that's
it's
the
still
only book that you were getting, definitely not, because it's still doing with that
the Rec Rap. Yeah.
rec rap story
It's
where
the
they gotta.
last part, though.
Yeah, it's only a 2-issue thing. Yeah,
Yeah.
I
I did
just.
not like that last issue.
Oh my gosh, we never got a chance to talk about it. That was. It's like you come off such a wonderful story off of the Craven the Hunter thing, right? And the whole sin situation. And then you go to that. Like, you want to talk about from such a high to low. And that's what this run has been. It's been so much roller coaster. It just goes from one extreme to the next, and it's so frustrating.
I love Steve says I hate Rec Rap, and then Don's like I love Rec Rap. So there's some conflicting. No, it for me it was boring. I agree. There was such a good height in last issue, and it's still good art in this. And I just yeah, I'm not. It's exactly what Spider-Man was before that arc. It hasn't changed in that regard.
Right, exactly. All right, so let's talk about X-Men issue 28. Um This was a story where Angelica is
Sure.
pretty much letting everybody know, like, hey, I'm still on the X-Men team. Cyclops was on the table. She whispered in her ear that I gotta do this, release Juggernaut first and try to get Juggernaut on the team and whatnot. So I like this issue. I thought it was pretty good. It was better than the last issue.
Yeah, no, I liked it. I liked the character moments. The Firestar moment was good. I really liked the ending with Kitty. I enjoyed seeing Kitty, Miss Marvel, and Wolverine teaming up because Miss Marvel, in another circumstance, probably would have been the Wolverine protege. I mean, she still will be. But
She
I
was
enjoy.
like in the early issues of Miss Marvel. Remember
Yeah,
when she was with Wolverine in the beginning?
yeah, the very very early
Yeah.
issues. I'd be curious to see where that goes now that she's a mutant. Yeah, I like this issue. I didn't love this issue. It's very point A to point B, but there's some good character moments.
Yeah, I just think they're in a lull right now, trying to develop this resistance in order um to take on Orcus.
Yeah, in the fall of the X-Men, they're building up to that. So, but it's not a bad book by any means. Just
No.
not an explosive book either.
Yeah, exactly. But this is better. I will still say by far this is the best X book. And I like how it is consistent and we got the consistent writer and
It's the
it's
only
been
one I'm
great.
reading right now. So,
The best issue was the one where Kitty had no choice and she had to kill all those people.
yeah,
That was great. That was next level shit for me there.
Jerry Dugan knows how to write Kitty Pryde. I think that's been proven. I think she was always great in Marauders, and he knows how to write that character, and that was a great issue. I'm glad she's part of the team again.
Excuse me. Steve, Steve said X-Men is starting to lose me again. I was excited after Hellfire Gala, but now it's crawling. So that's why I feel like just stick with the main title and like that's it. Don't worry about all the other books, and it won't seem as. And I don't know if you're reading the other books, but I feel like the X-Men book is the best, even though it's not perfect. It gives you enough to understand what's going on in the X-Men universe right now.
Yeah, no, I feel okay with just reading X-Men, and it doesn't feel too overwhelming because it only comes out once a month.
It says, I like that Spider-Man keeps doubling down, keep the story going. Wreck Rap is awesome.
It does seem like there's torn, feelings about Rec Rap, but, if you're enjoying it, that's what's important,
I
and I hope to enjoy Gang War.
I don't think I mind the character. I think the character's okay. I just think I don't I just don't feel like we need him in a story with
But
this limbo Sinister Six and wasting time. We had so much time wasted with the whole Mary Jane, Miss Marvel debacle that we don't need another dark web spin-off thing. It's just enough is enough. Let's just get to the gang war. Let's deal with what, we're getting to. Like, I don't know. That's just me though.
no, and I don't get the humor. The humor is not there for me, and I don't really understand the point of this character. I don't think that's really been spelled out either. So, but different strokes for different folks for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's talk about Supergirl Special Issue 1. This one was written by Marco Tamaki. Um, so for me, I get the message that they were getting across with this comic book, right? However, for what this book was, I felt like there wasn't very much story in there. I thought the story could have been more. And I felt like I read this before with Supergirl being super,
Well, she is the same writer, so yeah, she wrote both books.
right? So it's
I
like it like revisited her like running track and feeling inferior and to the other superheroes. And didn't we just I don't know if you read it, Kat, but we just read that in the Superboy series.
Um, no, thankfully, I haven't read the Superboy series, and I haven't because I read issue 1 of the Superboy series, but then I didn't continue it. Um, I like this issue for what it was. I think honestly, I wish it was an ongoing. I wish it was a mini series because I feel like like you said, there's a lot to be told. I liked that they tried to place something with Supergirl as a huge Supergirl fan. She's such a mishmash of a character right now that it at least was nice to be like, okay, this is what's going on with her. I like that they tackled the fear and the trauma in a different way because I what I find very interesting about Supergirl is that she lost her planet, right? She's like, "Oh, I'm always sad I lost my planet." And something that they did differently in this book is like, "Well, I lost my planet, but also I actually didn't really have a great time on Krypton, so I don't really know what I'm missing." And I was like, "Oh, that's
Mhm.
something different. I like that." I like that they somehow weaved it into what's going on with Superman now. I think it did the job of a one shot, but I think it was a disservice that we didn't get more. And I think it's a disservice that they're not doing anything with
Yeah.
Supergirl. But the art was really good, and I think they did the best with the real estate they had. And I personally would want to see more. And I thought it was a solid story. But yeah, it's a shame that they just don't know what to do with
Yeah.
Supergirl.
I just think it could have been something more because it's like they didn't have any opportunity to put a real threat in this comic. I would have loved to seen that and then really trying to find her footing within that threat as well. It was just like it just ended so quickly. And that's what I was frustrated about it. I felt like it could have been more. It just seemed like it was rushed. Like it was like, oh, I'm going to talk to Lois. And now it's like I ate a cupcake and hey, I feel better now. And it's just like, yeah, I wish there would be something else with Supergirl. Something that's worth reading though at the same time.
But I thought this was a good start. I think if this was a start of an ongoing series, I've been like, yeah, that was a really solid first issue. Can't wait to see more.
Makes sense. But it just ends and then that's it.
Sure. Yeah, and we really do not know if we'll get more Supergirl. Is Supergirl much like She-Hulk, where it is picking up in the middle of the last arc of her character? No, I would say it's honestly, I think it does a really good job of being new reader friendly. I think you can pick it up without really following any of the other stories. Maybe you'll question who some of the characters are surrounding her, but they're not very important.
Right, exactly. Okay, so let's see. So we got a comment here. Supergirl was much better than White Widow. Did you read White Widow?
No, because last time I read one of Yelena's stories, it was kind of boring. So I
Uh-huh.
was like, I don't need to.
So we're gonna talk about that. So since it's not even on here, but I wanted to
Mhm.
talk about it. I read it and I was expecting like a Black Widow, an espionage type of story. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
We really loved Black Widow's last main
Sure, we
story
all
with the
did.
arcade and her mind being erased and all that other stuff. And this I was kind of expecting maybe like the same thing, right? But this was another like Fire and Ice type of book.
Mm.
This was another Power Girl book. This was another it wants to be a Kate Bishop book. That's what this was. It was like a reject of all those books because it's like she moves to a small town, she lives in an apartment with these three other people. She doesn't do espionage stuff. She's like in charge of all the other people and characters look exactly the same. One character loses her arm. She's like this Misty Knight type of thing. I don't know. There's some weird graphs on like what she likes and dislikes. And it was horrible. It was not a good book. They tried going a little bit outside of the box with certain things, try to make it a little, unique, but it was it was also like, it was too cutesy for what it was. It was like, that's not what I want to read, and I was definitely so disappointed with this book. And I'm definitely not going to be picking up issue 2 after this.
That's a shame because there's elements from what it sounds like that could be interesting, make it different. But if you don't have the espionage within it, because I mean, I think Black Widow is a good example of that, where you got to see the family stuff, you got to see her grounded, but they still made it a Black Widow book. You still have that, and honestly, I think Hawkeye is a good example of it too. If you read the Matt Fraction Hawkeye, then you read the Kelly Thompson Hawkeye, it has similar vibe to that series that you're used to, but then does something different. So you have, or
Right.
honestly, Burnside, Batgirl. It's a very, very different series, but she's still Batgirl. She's still fighting crime. So you could definitely need the balancing act.
Yeah, this was very disappointed. I don't like even the dog. She had a dog, and it's just like the dog's name was it Blint Clarton or something like that. Like
Right.
it's so dumb. It's just like stop trying to be something that it's not because that takes away from the character altogether. And I was just frustrated with that. Yeah, definitely not picking up that next issue. All right, so where are we here? Are we on
I think
number
we're on
3?
number 3.
All
Yeah.
right, so what was your number 3?
Mine was X-Men. We already talked about it.
Okay, cool. Mine was mine was Red
White
Light.
Widow.
No, Red Light. Um from AWA Upshot.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
this
I could picture it in my head, but I don't know much about it.
so this was a story about like um this guy by the name of the Mister who has this service, this pleasure service, okay? And he's created like all these different types of um things like androids, VR, and if you obviously are a VIP, you get the best of the best. And he created this android by the name of Lacey, who actually has empathy. So she's empathetic towards the clients. And so obviously, when she has sessions with these clients, he can tell that her problems and she feels, and it just gives them a much more, I don't know, pleasurable experience that way or whatnot. And the cool thing about this character is she's not just an android or this sex doll or android or whatever it is. It's just like she is almost like a human. And one day she finds a younger adult that's there in the facility that she's kept at. And she's like, what's wrong? And she's just like, I never get to leave this place, the young girl says. And she feels for her. And then the next thing you wind up finding out is that the next issue is this android. She wants to leave and see the world for the very first time. It's really interesting story. She's celebrating her birthday. She has these sessions with the person that created her. It's just a much different comic book, and it's just great character development right from the very start. It's not a book with just sex in it. It just has so much more involved. So
Yeah,
just
those are always great.
yeah, it's about this. I mean, it's about basically an android that hasn't experienced the world. All she
Right.
knows is what's in this little cell that she's currently in that just pleasures people,
Mhm.
Very, very interesting story. Definitely would suggest it for sure. All right, so we'll move on to Avengers issue 7. I read the book. I thought it was pretty cool. We just get to see the next chapter, kind of a little bit of a filler here of what's happening with our characters. They're getting ready to come across another set of villains that were in the Timeless comic that came out earlier in the year.
I don't even remember. Was Jed McKay write that one too? I don't
Yeah, Jim
remember.
McKay
Okay.
wrote that one as well. They now took over the Ashen Combine's floating city that they had. It's now their new base of operations that orbits the Earth. So no longer are they part of like that celestial that they were living in the past. So pretty cool stuff there. A lot of things going wrong with some of the characters as well. I like this series. I think it's good. I think it's much better than Jason Aaron's run by far, by far.
Yeah, not
So
much of a contest on that one, but
yeah, no. Um, Blood Commandment issue 1. This is a book that Brant and I read as well.
who
This
released this?
this was by Image. This
Image.
is the
Okay.
same guy that did Simon Kudrynski, I think you say his name. He's the same guy that did Something Epic.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So this book was pretty cool as well because it was about a father and a boy who go and live in the woods. Like that's where they spend their life. And their mother passed away. You don't know why the mom passed away. And this everything is kept very secretive towards this young boy, right? And so the father's like, I'll tell you when you get old enough, you're a couple of ways from driving, you'll have a little bit more freedom. And so, what happens is you see them go into town. This book is very like black and white. You only see a lot of like eyes and mouth and stuff like that. But what you find out is that this father has a very like dark secret, right? And really what you find out is that I think it's not obviously told in the comic is he is the one that killed the mother because he is a vampire.
Yeah.
And he lives in the woods because right now, to feed his hunger, he hunts the animals himself when he changes into a vampire. So that keeps his cravings down so he doesn't kill actual people. So very interesting to see the struggle that this father is going through to raise his young boy and to fight the urge of being this vampire at the same time. So this is a really good book. This was phenomenal.
I'm glad you liked it. It's hopefully it picks up a lot of steam too because I didn't even hear about this book that coming out.
Yeah. This was good. And it's just a good setup issue. So curious to see what will happen. The artwork is phenomenal in this book. Like it's pretty much like black and whites, but with a lot of red in it because it's a vampire book. And yeah, good stuff there. All right. So let's go to number 2. What was your number 2?
Mine was It's Jeff, the Jeff verse. So that was what I was alluding to how to do an all ages book. This is fun, has no baggage. It's just Jeff being Jeff. It's cute. There's not even any dialogue. You just and what the reason I say this is how you do an all ages book because I did hear that it's like, oh well, this is expensive too. It's $6. This is just the collected version. You can read the Marvel version, and Kelly Thompson, I think it was in a newsletter, maybe is on Twitter, said it has over 1 million views. Jeff on there, which is crazy because you don't even sell a million comics anymore. So it's cool that it found so many different lives. It's like you could read it printed if you want, you can read it digitally. And this is a book that I really feels all ages. Like I got fun with it, but then a 5-year-old can have fun with it, and it's just a fun book. And I like comedy books, and we don't get them very often. I didn't think it was as good as the first issue because it didn't involve as many characters as the first one did. But I still had a good time with it. I like this coming out every once in a while.
Yeah, I agree. I enjoyed this. This wasn't in my top 5 this time. It was last time because it was fresh for me, and
Yeah, it's the first of its kind.
right, and so I laughed out loud. This one was good in its own way. My thing that I got a little bit frustrated with, there was like a lot of part 1s and part 2s.
Hmm.
And I almost would have liked if they did like the part 1 at the beginning and then like a part 2 at the end, but they was like part 1 and then the same story part 2, and I'm like,
Yeah, because of the release, because I'm guessing
right,
digitally
yeah.
it's
And
coming
I
out
get
and
why, but
reflecting it.
in comic form, I would have loved to seen it that way. But
Hmm.
nevertheless, though, it's always entertaining. I loved seeing the stories. I love
Good
the
art.
artwork. It's
Hmm.
very good. And probably when another one comes out, I'll probably pick that up too. I mean, I bought this one because I love the cover of this one.
Oh, that's so yeah.
It's
Again,
so
it's
cute.
cute. Like the
Right.
art, and you see that cover, it's cute. Like these are the all ages books I really want to continue seeing, and I think work. And I think Kelly Thompson just found such a good group. But yeah, going back to the art, the comedy could only be as good as that art, and it sells it. They just have such good chemistry, really good facial expressions, and again, it's just a really easy pickup. So go check out Jeff. It's a fun book.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, so let's go on to our
I think
number one,
number
right?
one, yeah, because
Yeah.
we just had to talk about Jeff.
So number one was oh, I never even said my number 2 though.
Oh yeah, number two,
Yeah,
go
my
for it.
number 2 was the Sacrificers.
Okay.
So that was that. And then my number 1 is Blood Commandment.
And mine was Supergirl, so we already talked about it.
All right, perfect. So that is the comics that were released. So the name changes says come on. I should get into Unleashed. It has great villains like Blackheart. So that's another like pretty good all ages book. It has to do with the
Mhm.
mascots of the Marvel universe. Like again, I would love to see something like that for the kids, like an ongoing series.
Yeah.
Like you get
Remember
Jeff
Pet Avengers?
Landstar, yeah, you get Young Avengers, you get all these different like little things. You can have a nice little line for the kids.
Sure, yeah. 100% agree, and I would like to see more of that.
All right.
So
So
I
now
think we're
we're going to
going
go to
most
the
anticipated.
most anticipated. Yeah. So let's see. What do we got, Kat? So we got your number 3 is the return, the return of Phantom Road.
I love this book. I just think it's so creepy. It always is really paced well. It's been a long hiatus. I don't remember last time the
Yeah.
last issue came out, but I just really like it. I don't know what about it I very much enjoy because it's not one of those books where I'm like, whoa, I'm going to the comic store for Phantom Road, but every single time I read it, I'm not disappointed. I'm like, wow, that was a creepy read. I'm enjoying this.
I agree. And the only thing though, it's such a fast read every time you
Yeah.
read it. And I want to know more about that freaking detective. Like, you know what I'm
Mm.
saying? So there's a lot there, and it just felt like we haven't gotten enough of it yet. So I'm looking forward to, not in my top 3, but definitely looking forward to it. Your number 3, my number 3, and your number 1 are on our list here. And this is Dark Ride. We're on issue 9 with this.
It's the return of the series, even though thankfully the hiatus was not very long.
No, exactly. So it looks like we're going to get the end of, or we're going to get the story of the sister, which it
Well, we
looks.
don't know much about. We just know that she follows dad's rules a lot. But other than that, we've been really following the brother's point of view. But Joshua Williamson's just such a good writer, especially when it comes to pacing. So I'm very excited just to see where it goes. I feel like this series, when you look at issue 1 to issue 9, the book has changed a lot. And
Yeah.
you can't say that about a lot of books in general when it comes to comics. So it's nice to just see how well paced this book is.
The concept of the story is great. I love
Mm.
it. I love horror as as a comic book fan, and just this idea of having this haunted theme, or this theme park that's haunted, and he basically sold other people's souls to the devil in order to get this park to be successful. We learned about the son. We've learned about the mother. We learned a lot about different characters. And so, yeah, I can't wait for this particular story about the daughter here. All right. And then we have your number 2 is my number 2. And it's The Punisher, issue 1.
I mean, how do you not add it after that previous volume? And honestly, what excites me is that they're not really changing things up from the previous volume, because there is a new Punisher. I know that's making people not excited about the book, because they're like, I just want to see Frank. But as someone who's not a hardcore Punisher fan but wants to see something different in comics, I'm very excited for this, because it's not just a random guy like, oh, here's Punisher because we wanted to do it. Like, the last story leads to this. It feels connected.
Uh,
David Propose is a friend of mine too, so it's cool to see him on such a big book. Yeah, I'm genuinely just really excited for this. I just think it has a lot of potential.
Yeah, I agree 100%. I want to see something different. I mean, we saw something different in my eyes in the last volume, and this is going to be something different. I want to know the motive of this guy. Why is he taking that mantle of the Punisher? Are we going to get hints of Frank Castle in this volume too, as well? I'm very curious here. I'm looking forward to it. I think they released preview pages of it. I took a glance at it, and the artwork's pretty good in it as well. So yeah, definitely excited for this. We had a comment here and says, I've heard great things about Dark Ride. I will have to check it out.
Get
Definitely
that
check it
trade.
out. The trades are out for it, man. You definitely should check it out. I don't think you'll be disappointed.
No, I don't think so either. Especially if you're a horror fan in any shape or form.
Right, exactly. Here we got a comment. Oh, you got
Oh yeah,
I
go
had.
for it.
I love the previous Punisher. Honestly, I would buy Punisher no matter what. That's cool.
There you go.
Very cool. All right. And then let's see what's different on our list.
You have Transformers on your list, and
That's
I
right.
am excited for Transformers, but I just wanted to pick stuff that was different,
Yeah.
because I think we all knew we were excited for Transformers.
Yeah. Transformers, obviously, we know why. I love the first issue. Looking forward to the second issue. Going to see, which looks like Starscream messing with the humans, and hopefully the Autobots getting their team together based off of covers. It looks like it's Optimus Prime, it's Ratchet, it's Cliff Jumper, RC, and I think that's what we have right now. So that might be it. I'm totally excited about this. I cannot wait for this issue. And just so you guys know, Brant's top 3 is Punisher. I'm sorry. Yeah, Punisher at number 2, Transformers at number 1. So the same as me. And then he has Batman 139 because
I'm curious why, I guess, new arc.
he's probably like, it's a new arc and it has to do with the Joker. I'm almost positive of that, So that's
That
pretty
one
cool.
wasn't close for me. I think Batman and Spider-Man were kind of in the same realm of like, yeah, they're coming out, I guess.
Yeah.
Let's see what happens.
So I think I put Batman as the book that's on the rise for me,
Hmm.
because it's a book that has fallen so low. I don't think it can get, I think it can go nothing but up from here. And
New
then,
Hope, yeah.
yeah, and then Spider-Man was like number 7 on my most anticipated. So it wasn't even close to top 3, really.
Yeah, no, I don't. I'm getting like 9 books. I think Spider-Man's probably one of my least most anticipated books. So I just,
Yeah.
at least this issue, like, just because it's direct wrap stuff. After that, I think it's the gang war. So
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll be in my top. It's just, you got to get through this arc.
Yeah, exactly. I think in the last issue they had 2 pages that was related to gang war, and that was
Hmm.
like Silvermane's showing him becoming that cyborg once again, and that was it. Otherwise, it was just pretty much worthless. So,
Yeah, it's very very filler.
and I just want to let you know I'm probably buying like any Transformers cover that's coming out tomorrow too.
There,
So.
you gotta fill up that short box.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, it's pathetic. I'm such a sucker for that. And it's gonna be probably like that with G.I. Joe too. So
I'm gonna pick up one cover of Transformers and GI Joe, but I am picking them up, so that's already good for someone who doesn't know anything about these franchises.
I'm
But
so
look, you
curious to
pick
see
great
what you'll
creators.
think about G.I. Joe too.
I'm excited for that one because of Joshua Williamson. Like he really doesn't let you down. So I'm just like, yeah, I'm excited, but also like I'm sure there's a lot of continuity when it comes to GI Joe. But I mean, he's just GI Joe. I mean, I'm hoping it's pretty new reader friendly.
Yeah, I think it's gonna come down to the characters for you.
Yeah,
So,
for sure.
like
Yes.
if they do like what they did in the first issue of Transformers, where they only introduce like a handful, I think you can grasp their, what's there, because there's
I
definitely
know even less about GI Joe than
there's a
Transformers.
lot of personalities in GI Joe, and so see what happens. Just remember, the guys that wear the Cobra emblem are bad.
That
Okay.
I at least got the gist of that one.
Okay.
I think that I do know. Other than that, I just know they're military characters, and I
Yeah,
think there's
Cobra
some girl
Commander is a bad guy, and he's the leader of them.
of all the bad guys.
Yeah, but then there's somebody actually higher than him that was created much more. In his name was it Serpentor? Yeah, I think that's what it was called. Yeah, and then there's Destro, and there's the Baroness, and they're a couple, and then there's Duke and Scarlet, they're a couple too, and then there's
Duke and
Flint.
Scarlet I've heard of.
Yeah,
Least.
Flint, and then there's Lady J, who's another one where they seem to be like a couple. There's just a lot. There's a lot that goes on in it. So
Yeah, don't introduce all those in issue 1, please, guys.
yeah.
Thank you.
Storm Shadow and Snake Eyes. So they're major enemies with each other. So there's a lot that goes into that. So
When's that coming out, GI Joe?
next
Soon-ish.
week.
Next week? It's in this month?
Not today. Not today, but the following week. And it kicks it off with issue 301. So it's
that's probably why I
one. Yeah. The Duke series comes out in December.
Okay, and that's the official new one, I guess. Okay. So I have to pick up GI Joe issue 300 and something.
Yeah.
Okay, because I don't even think I have it on my pull list right now, so I have to keep an eye on it.
And the name that changes says, I think he is right, because they do sound super similar on the TV, on the cartoons. He goes, I think the voice actor for Cobra Commander is the same as Starscream. They are my favorite characters. I think he's right there. Yeah. Pretty sure they are. So, yep. But not as heavy as a comic book week tomorrow. I think the week after, though, is a pretty hefty week. And get ready to spend some money there for sure. But that's about it. So do you have anything else, Kat?
No, I am looking at the list. November 22nd is the week where I'm getting a lot of books.
Yeah.
So that's going to be fun. But yeah, no, just check out the Kickstarters that I've mentioned. Slice of Life, the anime adventure, if you like anime, if you want some enamel pins, superhero enamel pins, werewolf enamel pins, go check those out. But other than that, yeah, even next week, not too many comics, but I'm sure a lot of fun conversations either way.
Yep. And I will be also discussing on Worthy Ones this week. It's a comic that not everybody wound up getting, but it's the series from Charles Soule that came out, which is the 8 Billion Genies issue or one shot that kind of continues, the extended universe of what happened. It was another set of characters. I'll be talking about that. Charles Soule released, I think, 3,000 of these books. So I wound up grabbing one. I actually read the issue today. And it was really good. I'll just tell you that. And then I'll discuss, what happened in the comic and Worthy Ones. And if I just say if it's worthy or not worthy. So check that out this particular comic book week. And with that being said, also check out the Kickstarters from Mark Spears and Frank Zanka. Great stuff. I'm sure they'll appreciate it if you bookmark it and back it. And as always, guys, we're going to sign off. So make sure you subscribe to Comic Book Corner 2.0 and Comic Book Weekly. Make sure you like, comment, share, hit the bell, And of course, guys, check it out. Check us out on social media. And hopefully we will have Brant on next week. And maybe we'll actually have some more news to discuss as well. And guys, as always, I'm going to say it here as well. Support those local comic book shops. Keep buying, keep collecting. More importantly, guys, always read your comics. We'll see you next week.